Hello, hello, hello. I hope everybody is good and everybody is well. Has everyone had a good Monday to Friday? I most certainly have. So, hello, hello, hello. So, as I was just saying, I hope everybody's had a great Monday to Friday. And yes, they like to say that February is the month of love, you know? And whatever it is, regardless, it's kind of been now socially that month. So I thought let's start getting intimate and talking about all of these things, you know. So hence why I thought let's talk about sex, and under that heading, I'll be talking about other things that will get us to that point, and having different discussions, not only with this wonderful gentleman George, but then on lady called Emma I'll be talking about. So I'm just waiting for our lovely George to join us now.
Hello again.
Welcome, my darling.
It's me again.
So thank you for joining me, and thank you to everybody else for joining us as well. We appreciate you. So I'm not going to make this very long, folks. I'm just going to be here because I realise that many people might be dealing with, if not themselves, at some point, because we've all been through it and we've all done this. But also if they're dealing with a partner that is not showing up for them emotionally. Okay. So I would like to start with the fact that, you know, we know that we are all reflection. So what we put out, therefore, is a reflection of ourselves. However, with emotional unavailability, you tend to find those that are, it will stem from their environment, relationships, whether that be parents, whether that be siblings, because children can get shut down from young, not to talk, to do as they're told. Boys, prime example, as soon as you're born, don't cry. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, like I just wanted to maybe give a bit of background about what it is, and then, as I've just mentioned, where it stems from, and how it then relates to sex. So, George, let me ask you your experience with emotional unavailability. Have you personally been in that space? Because I have. And how did you navigate yours as opposed to having it as an experience from somebody else?
So do you mean have I been emotionally unavailable to other people? That too.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, my experience, I have had emotional unavailability in every single one of my relationships, every single one of my partners. Um, they've all become emotionally unavailable at some point in the relationship. Um, just literally just shutting down communication, shutting down um, feelings, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's something that is happening happening a lot to a lot of people, really. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Especially in my experience, it was the partner not being able to actually express how they truly felt about things. So rather than expressing how they truly feel, it was easier to just shut down themselves, therefore shutting down the relationship. Because you can't go any further um, when two people aren't being emotionally available and vulnerable to each other and with each other and for each other. So it just it just shuts things down, and it starts to, things can end pretty quickly, or there's a slow decline, depending on the situation is. In terms of myself being ever being emotionally unavailable, I think at sometimes I have retreated within myself a little bit and not express how I've been feeling. But generally, I am quite an expressionate person, and I tend to like wear my heart on my sleeve. So I've never really done that per se, but I've definitely been on the receiving end of that a lot more. And if I am emotionally unavailable, it doesn't really last long because I do very much always want to talk things out and express myself. But yeah,
I think, thank you for sharing that and being so open and frank with that. I appreciate you, George, because I know for me, on an empathic field, like my emotions, like you, have always been out there. However, the people pleaser in me would shut down emotionally when it come to, especially when I had a fear of saying no, you know? So I would kind of shut down then. Or if people made me upset, I wouldn't want to vent that frustration or anger as an emotion, just because, again, people pleasing. I wouldn't want their then opinion of me to think that I don't care about them, even if I was in no, I don't want to keep saying the word narcissist tonight. I've just realised I've said that. But even if I was in unequal relationship when it came to emotions being just portrayed or displayed, you know. So signs of emotional unavailability, folks, you will find it's someone who will be quite evasive with their emotions, that will be a bit shut down, that will avoid being openly sharing their emotions with you. Also, like, don't really like to talk about relationships or each other together, and as Emma's quite rightly lovely put, egotistical as well. Again, this can happen to all of us, because like I said, from our relationships when we were young, because we can't just turn around and say, oh, this has happened as an adult because we've had a bad relationship, but this stems from our upbringing. Sometimes we're brought into families where the families and the mother and father aren't emotionally available, so therefore the older child tends to be, or some of the children in between tend to be, each other's emotional support network. Yeah. What normally happens to someone who is emotionally unavailable, though, on a regular basis is you'll find out when it is time to be confronted by those emotions, you'll get outbursts of anger. You'll get, because they don't know how to express themselves. And it's a frustration inside. And as we know, anger is more widely accepted from what we've been taught than, say, for instance, tears, if they're wanting to release. And what they'll also do as well is, in order to connect with you, they will reflect your emotions if their emotions are not intact with themselves. So I have to now say the word narcissist are a classic example of this, because they are. They will reflect your emotions, literally to the point that you think you're looking in a complete mirror, which is beautiful. But as we know, when we meet someone, often if we're not on that frequency and that person wants to get onto your frequency, they'll match whatever frequency they need to get you on in order to get their claws into you in that kind of dynamic. Any of this ringing, I don't know, like true or experiences with you, G?
Oh, definitely. I think I was listening to you, but I was kind of like
Going into your memory bank. I
was like literally like having flashbacks of things. And And I'm just like, yeah, what you said is so profound and very relevant. Wow. I mean, this is kind of similar to what we just spoke about as well in my video as well, not too long ago. So I love how this is all interlinked and kind of feels like carrying on the conversation, but
Mm,
different different route to it. So it's just
mm,
it's definitely got me thinking now. I think what you said about um, outbursts, that was it. Having a massive angry outburst because they're not expressing themselves. Like I said, like I'm sure you've been on the receiving end of that. I've been on the receiving end of that with someone who's relatively quite calm and
mm,
put together, you know,
mm,
and
mm.
then one day they're just effing and blinding and shouting and throwing pots across the room. It's just like,
Where did
where
that come from?
did that come from? This isn't like you. Like
Mm,
I was the emotional one, you know, or like the
mm,
crazy one, so to
yeah.
speak. But yeah, never did anything like that.
Mm. So, for those that might, thanks George for sharing that as well. Like those that might be wondering, how the hell does this all relate into sex? So, true sex needs to have emotions. And towards the end of this month, I'll be going through the spectrum to where we can get into some really fun cosmic sexual stuff, because it's one of my favorites. However, without us getting to that point, we need to get to this point first. So, you know, we need to know how to show up for ourselves ultimately first before we can then connect properly with another. And sex is not only such a beautifully sacred thing, but it is, for me personally, it's like I go into Wonderland because I am emotive, you
Mm.
know? So, therefore, to be with someone who isn't, I couldn't actually imagine that experience. Like, I suppose if we're talking about early 20s and you're just having a bang, that's different. Do you know what I mean? But I'm talking about now for those of us that are like, okay, if whether you want a relationship or what kind of experiences that you want to be putting out there for yourself in your life, for me, it would have to be, you need to be in touch with yourself and who you are as a person before coming to step to me. Because that shit now go work, Josh. Do you know what I mean? Like, you need to know yourself somewhat as a person. You need to be able to express that in whatever format feels most comfortable for you without mirroring me. But at the same time, ensuring you are in your heart space, that you're not just leading in your sacral sexual chakras, you know? So this is where we're at, peeps, you
Yeah.
know? Yes, but has just put down back up, bro. Do you even sage though? Do you know what I mean? And it isn't exactly that, you know. Do you cleanse and neutralize yourself
Mm.
and your spirit and your soul before thinking that you're going to even get your aura close to people like us, rather than,
We're back.
yeah, are we?
No, we are. I saw what happened
Okay,
with
thank you for that. So rather than do anything else, I appreciate you letting me know, George, because obviously the gremlins don't want us talking about healing again. Anyway, what is one of the first steps? And the first step for me would be to become aware. Okay, so like with everything, with anything that we are going through in life, it is simply a case of once we become aware of how we're behaving. So if any of the tips that I shared earlier and George has mentioned earlier ring familiar to you, either with yourself or with anyone else, because remember, we are simply reflections of one another, of one consciousness. So therefore, yeah. So therefore, once we become aware of this, that is always the first step when we are open and willing to be able to adapt and change and work through those experiences, those traumas, etc. So one good tip that I would give to you guys, George, have you got any tips that you would think maybe that you'd want to share with people? Someone, like if you came across someone again, i.e. in a relationship, and you saw that they wasn't showing up before you got to that point, what would you suggest they do?
What? Sorry, to them as a potential
Yeah,
partner.
like as in potential partner.
If to be honest with you, at this point, I probably just wouldn't take it further with them because I'm quite drained by that sort of energy. But in saying that, obviously you can't just throw people away like that if there is something good there. If there's good stuff, like what's his name? When I just keep remembering.
You just had that conversation on your channel as well, didn't you? So
yeah, we spoke about that on my channel, but I just keep hearing that Steve's voice from Sex and the City when he was talking to Miranda, and he was just like, "There's good stuff here. There's good stuff here." And it's like, yeah, sometimes there is good stuff there, even though there's some shit stuff too, and sometimes the good stuff outweigh the shit, and that's when you have to really hone in and focus on like, this is something I actually want, and I need to focus on this and make this work with the other person, as long as they're both making it work, you know.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, so I would say address it if you do come across someone that is being emotionally withheld. Try and address it in a calm and loving way. And just it's really up to you how you want to deal with it. If you want to say to them, look, this isn't something I'm comfortable with, but I really like you. So maybe this is something you want to, we can probably work on together, or, I can help you find some help with this. But also, like I just said before, my first response was, personally, I wouldn't take it further with them in my current state, because I'm just not in that mindset of dealing with anyone else's foolishness anymore.
Yeah, you've got a higher self-esteem, and more power to you for that. But there are still people, unfortunately, in the other spaces at the moment, So thank you for that, George. And I agree with you, because I wouldn't allow that, even though by default it happened to me last year. And that was because that person was mirroring me, quite plain and simple. So for me, folks, if you notice any of these, quite rightly what George said, get into your heart center, get into your space of like, how would I feel, or how can I approach this with them? Do it from always a tender, loving, caring heart space. However, if it's you yourself that's noticing that you are showing up like this, I'm going to give you one tip, is to start listing down all of the relationships or experiences that you've had along your journey that have contributed to certain emotions shutting you down, or certain emotions being shut down. So say, for instance, if you're a boy and you was continuously told not to cry, or to continuously told to be strong. Or if you was a woman and when you're younger, women get told not to cry as well. My family were forever telling me not to cry, and I don't know why, because I was always crying. Well, I was always crying, but it didn't stop me. So that's the end of that one, really. So it's like I've always said to you folks, like, crying for me on the inside is washing for us on the outside. So it's a form of cleansing. Anybody who has I've got a plethora more of tips, and if anybody wants to find out more, you're more than welcome to DM me directly. And also next Thursday on the new moon, I have another one of my 90-day cycles starting again. So feel free to DM me or pass this on to other people. Please share what we're doing, George and I, because we're just trying to get our vibration of beautiful earth and each other back into a heart space, you know, so that we can all transition into where and how we're truly meant to be, assisting each other on this earth and showing up for each other on this beautiful earth. So yeah, my 90-day cycle starts next week Thursday, the next new moon, and I have one place. So yeah, get in touch.
I've got a question.
Sorry, darling. Yeah.
What is your 90-day cycle for anyone that wouldn't know about what it is that you actually do?
Oh, I've not launched my website yet, George. But that's a good question. Anyway, so I will take you through your traumas. I will bring you out of your traumas, always with a loving heart space. I will it's more about mindfulness, the work that I've done along my way, which I'm not divulging everything as of yet, but those that do want to DM me, they can, because I have knowledge of many modalities. There'll be an energy cleanse for those that also want it within there, and I do a lot of ancestral and also DNA patterning work, and then once we have reset, we will then start working on bringing in everything that your heart and mind and soul has ever desired. So I have had, and I'm continuously having people break cycles and chains of families, and being able to pass that on to their families, and started a new company, brought in new jobs, brought in new partners. So yeah, and gratefully it's been beautifully received. There's nothing like this on beautiful planet Earth. It was all of my creation with source and my own experience through life, and amalgamating everything that I've learned together. And yeah, so you kind of get 90 days, which is long enough to create a lifestyle change, and I'll be there to cheer you on and hold your hands and get you through it. Basically, you don't have to go through this alone, folks, you know. And just make you realise your worth, how absolutely magnificent you are. So thank you for that, George. Is that all right?
I would highly recommend working with Jenny if you feel called to. It's powerful.
Thank you.
How she can help others and people. It's really it's special and it's different. And I'm excited to see how you grow and expand with it.
Okay, right, I'm gonna have to close up my heart chakra soon so people don't come to try and attack it. Thank you, George. On that note, folks, I know, but you do it to me, boy, and my heart's already open for what we've been doing this evening as it is. So thank you, George, for joining me as always. Thank you to everyone for joining me, even though the gremlins are still playing with my voice, and right now I can only see myself online if it wasn't for George saying that you're here. So yeah, they're trying to stop and start us, but guess what? Can't stop what's already going to happen. Nothing's bigger than the planets, folks. So yeah, let's do this. You will see me on Monday with Emma at 8 o'clock. We'll also be on Emma's page. Check my page most probably tomorrow or Sunday for what time we'll be on Emma's page, and then we'll be talking about sex, the myths and the truths busted. So yeah, and I will be getting graphic, folks, so this one's gonna be fun. Oh, now I'm staticky. Okay, well, with that, I'm gonna say good night. I love you, George. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, and good night.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.